Our opponent has access to only 2 mana interaction and potentially Archmage's Charm. I think I'd rather get my Titan Archmage's Charmed than get it Crypticed. So I think we are probably going for it here. Alright guys, we are here for match 2 with the list that you see on screen. We are playing 3 whole copies of Turntimber Symbiosis. Let me know what you think about this card. I'm trying to evaluate it myself. I have to admit, I don't have a very high opinion of the card, but maybe that will change as the league progresses. And with that said, I will see you guys in the start of match 2 here. Alrighty, let's hop on in here. Also, while we were waiting, I had an interesting thought. So, obviously, many of you will be aware of the rivalry, sort of, between Sakura Tribe Scout and Grazer. Obviously, this hand's a mulligan. All lands Azusa, not looking the greatest to me. Here we have a Garenbrig kind of hand. Untapped sources galore. Radiant Fountain if our opponent's on something aggressive. Primeval Titan to ready to go here on turn 4, I guess, depending on if we have enough untapped sources, which I'm not going to calculate anyways, because I don't want to go down to 5. Let's pitch this pact. But I was going to say, it occurred to me that playing Scout usually is better in the blind, because Scout cuts an extra turn off your Titan by being able to activate an extra turn before your Titan needs to be cast. So, like, for example, you play it on turn 1, activate it turn 2, and on turn 3, you can activate it to put a land into play, which could be the difference between activating Garenbrig or not. Whereas if you play Grazer instead, on turn 3, regardless of, or because of the fact you don't have an additional land to play, since the Grazer's not putting that second land drop into play, you are essentially a turn slower on casting your Titan than you would otherwise be with Scout. However, it occurred to me that playing Grazer against aggressive decks kind of buys back that additional turn, because blocking with Grazer represents a turn's worth of damage, especially against a deck like Prowess. So, by gaining that extra life, you're effectively making up for the fact that you lost a turn by not playing Scout by gaining a turn's worth of damage, which is interesting. Which also explains why Grazer is so bad against other interactive decks, especially control decks. Grazer's awful against control. It can sometimes be alright against something like Jund, where you can chump block a Goyf and that extra turn makes a difference, but it's only when that turn actually makes a difference, right? So, anyways, that's just an interesting thought that I had. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, especially if you have anything to say about Grazer versus Scout. I'm always interested in the drama. Our opponent's on Gilded Goose, by the way. I didn't mention anything about this, but this is very interesting to me. And Mox Amber. Is this a Rug Urza deck? We see Chromatic Star also. Gilded Goose was a very common one to see in the blue-green Urza lists of times past. Obviously, we're slamming Dryad. No two ways about it. Probably getting a Growth Chamber into play so we can rebuy this Radiant Fountain here. Getting a tap land out of the way as well. Yeah. Alright, opponent. We got turn 4 Titan here with Valcut triggers ready to go, assuming they don't kill our Dryad with, say, a Galvanic Blast or something crazy. So, yeah, we'll see what they got. Even if they just slammed Urza here, they would probably be just dead, as we do have a second land drop, including a fetch land, which is double the triggers. So we'd play Radiant Fountain, for example, cast Titan, get double Valcut. That's 12 damage, 4 triggers, 3 damage each, 12 damage to our opponent. Play second land drop. Didn't even have to be Windswept Heath, but now we have to decide if we want to play around our opponent's potential counter magic, because this Mox Amber right here actually represents a Cryptic Command, which our opponent could be playing. We also just now drew the Tolari West to transmute for Cavernous Holes, which is actually fantastic. I think we will do that. We're not playing it this turn, though, as there's really no reason to. I think we play out the Fountain. Play out the Growth Chamber as well. We'll pick up the Fountain, after floating a blue, of course. And we'll transmute this Tolari West. Doing all this before going to combat, because we want to guarantee that we get our land drop of value here from our Dryad. Say something untimely were to happen to our Dryad, then we want to get these lands into play for sure. And the land that we want to get is Cavernous Souls here to help us play around that counter magic that we were so worried about before. And now we just clock the Rin. Could clock them. The Valcuts are going to kill them anyways, so if they kill the Dryad, then it doesn't matter where we attack, and if they don't kill the Dryad, we still potentially have lethal on them anyways, so might as well clock the Rin, make sure they can't take it up towards ultimate. If they have some crazy way to deal with Titan, like fetch shock Thoughtseize, then we'll be glad to have taken an extra couple turns off of their Rin ult. So, when in doubt, get your opponent's board clear. Buys the most time, in my opinion. Especially if you're not sure if your opponent will actually even be dead to what you have got going on anyways. Let me know if you disagree with that in the comments below, by the way. Jiggy Wiggy is paying cost. See a tapping of the Mox Amber. Perhaps making a thing here with a Gilded Goose, making a food. That's the one. Prismari Command. Alright, so let's read this one. This is a new one from Strixhaven. 3 mana, instant. Target player draws 2 cards and then discards 2 cards. Of course, they're targeting themselves, and they're making a treasure. Those are only 2 of the modes on Prismari Command. So I'll show you the rest of the card after the resolution, of course. It's a very interesting one. When I saw this, a lot of people were comparing it to Electrolyze, but Electrolyze is not playable anymore, I hate to tell you. And Prismari Command is not really that much better than Electrolyze, at least in my honest opinion. So for 3 mana, you can either deal 2 damage to any target, you can draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, you can make a treasure token, or you could destroy an artifact. So this is kind of similar to Kolaghan's command, but it doesn't have the card advantage, because drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards, don't forget that you're also casting Prismari Command from your hand. So you're losing a total of 3 cards that are going to the graveyard and gaining 2, which is actually card disadvantage. So you really have to have something powerful you're doing from your graveyard, or some very glass cannon thing you're trying to set up from your hand for drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards to be a good effect, right? And then, like, the only way you get 2 cards worth of value is by killing something with the 2 damage and then also destroying an artifact, and a lot of decks just don't play artifacts, even against the Amulet. Like, we don't need an Amulet to win, so it's arguably not even worth a card to destroy an Amulet and then do 2 damage to something else. Like, that's arguably still pretty close to a 1-for-1. I mean, I guess it costs us a card or whatever, but anyways. Point being, this is not Kolaghan's command. Is it better than Electrolyze? Maybe. Electrolyze is actually card advantage, especially if you're hitting things that die to Electrolyze. So there's the Urza. Our opponent could still be holding up counter magic here, especially something like... What's the card? Actually, I guess they're not holding up the improvised counterspell. Metallic Rebuke. They would need an additional land or artifact for 0 mana here for that to work. So we might just have the lethal. There's the 0 mana artifact. I mean, they can't counter our Primeval Titan thanks to Cavernous Souls. Very heads-up play for us to transmute for it, and also a very lucky top deck to have drawn the Talari West then. So I guess they just have to have Galvanic Blast or it's over. They can't even cast Cryptic here, so... Yeah, I mean, if ever I were going for it, it is this upcoming turn. See if they have a second Explosives to hold off Cryptic. Even then, they would just have to, like, bounce a land, perhaps, or bounce the Dryad as a tracker. Alright, our opponent's just dead. They're hoping we don't have it. Sorry, this time we do have it, opponent. Well, they get 2 clues. They still can't cast Galvanic Blast, so yeah, I don't know. I'm not thinking that this matters a whole lot. Gingerbread Cabin. They get to create a food. Interesting. I mean, they get a lot of mana here. Ooh, they finished off with Chromatic Star. Our opponent could very well have Galvanic Blast as the last card. I mean, let's look at this board and look at the number of cards in our opponent's hand. Would you want to take the odds that that very last card is Galvanic Blast? I will tell you for sure, I am not taking those odds. However, I will play the Cavern in case our opponent has a counterspell, because I think that's more likely than them having a Galvanic Blast. And yeah, let's cast Titan. We have super uber lethal here with double Valakut's already being lethal, and then Windswept Teeth afterwards for an additional 4 triggers, so... Sorry, opponent. You were hoping we wouldn't have it, but we do. That is just how it goes sometimes. Save targets upstairs. Always yes, always yes, always yield. GG. Got the Galv Blast. Galv Blast or bust, opponent. They're making mana. Perhaps just cracking a clue. But they have Cryptic Command. I guess they can bounce the Dryad. That's fair. So it's not quite over. We already have Valakut set up for our Dryad here, so not in bad shape. Don't get additional land drop because Dryad is no longer in play, but we have Titan in play. And we have lethal in our hand here with the 2 lands and Dryad, so... We're at 24 as well, which is not insignificant. Tracker getting all the clues. They have access to a lot of cards here, I will say that. Tracker is a very good Magic card, in case you're not aware. We are playing 3 of them in our own sideboard. This is going to be one of those grindy matchups that... I don't know if I have the patience of mind to deal with a matchup like this at the moment. Maybe I shouldn't be recording this late, but... Oh well. We'll see. They could even spin Urza a couple times if they really wanted to. Assuming we're going to be slamming Dryad after we untap, which may not be a fair assumption. It might be better to attack with Titan, assuming they'll let us, and then get a bounce land, pick up the Cavern Souls, play Cavern on Dryad, and then play the Dryad, because then Windswept Heath would just be lethal. 2 triggers plus the fetch for another land is another 2 triggers, which is 12, so... That might be a better line. Force them to Cryptic Tap or Cryptic Bounce our Titan or something before we start going and casting Dryad of the Elysian Grove. We even have Explorer to buy an additional land drop here if we need it, which is interesting. And they get Yorion in their hand, okay. Opponent's taking a lot of game actions, but... I don't know, is it good enough? It might be. And make a food token, okay. I guess they can gain a bunch of life from their food in response to some Valakut triggers, so that's definitely something to notice. We can attack and get bounce land to pick up the Cavern and 3rd Valakut, i.e. Vesuva Copy Valakut. Yeah, Valakut. Valleycut. Right, we're obviously not sacrificing our Primeval Titan for no reason here, so just take the damage. Yeah, I don't know how that works out as far as land drops are concerned. We might just have to slam this Dryad into potential counter magic and try to win this turn, as our opponent's just drawing an inordinate amount of cards every turn, so... And just piling up more and more mana, so it's not getting better for us as we go, so probably jamming is still right. The exact sequencing for that, however, is of question. Yorion, you got it. Yeah, I don't know. If our opponent's plan is to hold up Cryptic here and hope we just cast Dryad before we go to combat, then it's not really going to work out for them. They are going to have access to an additional Construct token here at the end of their turn when their Urza comes back, so there's that. They do have Galvanic Blast in their deck, so I was right in being worried about this one. Lots of things come back. Gilded Use included. So they have a lot of mana here. Still go to combat first, I think. There's a bounce land, which is not a bad pickup at all. We still want to get a bounce on the attack so we don't expend a land drop, though, I think. Let's start by going to combat. See what, if anything, they do about it. We will attack here, as we just have to kill them with Dryad anyways, and it probably has to be this turn, so... Don't care that they're gonna block and kill our Titan. That's not the point. If they have it, they have it, and I am perfectly okay with that. Let's get the Garrison just for the value. Copy the Valakut, of course. And pick up this Cavern so we can get a Dryad into play guaranteedly. Again, we're forcing them to have Galvanic Blast, basically. I guess another Cryptic to bounce the Dryad in response to some triggers could be good. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I think we just slam the Dryad and play Heath so that if they do have Cryptic, we can at least fetch and get 3 triggers in response. I don't know if that actually helps us. I don't think we have a choice. So let's just hope our opponent has literally nothing. We'll make an uncounterable Dryad here. Put it into play. Play Heath. These are auto-yielded. I don't know if that's what we want. It might be fine. We're going to send them all up at them, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's fine. I guess if they Cryptic bounce the Dryad, we fetch, get 3 more triggers in response, and put them down to a lot less than what they're at now. And then we just replay the Dryad, force them to have a second counterspell. We need to always yes this new Valakut. Alright. Oh, we have to explore to get an additional land drop here. That's kind of awkward. We will do it. We want to get this extra land drop before we have to fetch, so that we have an additional instant speed couple of triggers in case they have something to interact. Like, for example, if they Cryptic to counter this Explorer, so we couldn't play an additional land, we could just crack the fetch in response and force them to have an answer right now. So that's going to be the plan. Alright, we win. Very happy about that. Is Explosives good in this matchup? We can put it on 0 and kill all of their mana rocks and engineered explosives on 0 and tokens like foods and stuff. So I think it's probably good enough to bring in a couple. Probably not a strong 3 of though. Obviously we want Dismember for the Urzas. Tracker helps us play underneath counter magic. It's a little slow though. They could potentially combo us if they have the Thopter Foundry, Infinite Life, Infinite Thopters combo with Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek and Urza. Obviously we want Rex Sage. Actually, is that obvious? What does Rex Sage hit that we actually care about? It's like, Rex Saging away an Urza construct token doesn't do anything. Most of their things either are just mana rocks or dead explosives or something. I don't know. I'm not convinced that Rex Sage is good. They could bring in Damping Sphere though, so I guess for that reason we want Rex Sage. Force of Vigor also suffers the same problem. Don't mind having one just to play around Damping Sphere, but anyways. Explorers would usually be good in a matchup like this, but I'm afraid it might be faster than just a traditional control matchup, as we don't really want to let them land an Urza and just soar ahead immediately, so trimming on Explorer seems good. One Summoner's Pact can go, especially since our opponent's likely to have Ashiok. Bojuka Bog was previously relevant thanks to Mystic Sanctuary, but I don't think is relevant any longer. I'm pretty tempted to cut Radiant Fountain as well. I don't mind that. We have so many untapped green sources that cutting one untapped source won't kill us. Tribe Scout's actually very good here. Even though our opponent could have things like Bolt and Galvanic Blast, I just don't care. Tribe Scout's just... If they bolt this, that's fine, because that's one less bolt to double bolt a Dryad or a Titan, so it's whatever. Maybe even trim a Turntimber. I don't know about that, though. Man, we gotta cut 5 cards? I guess one Garenbrig can go. Second Summoner's Pact maybe is a choice. I think I'd rather trim on Explorers before then, though. Just because I'm trying to be on the board quick here. One Turntimber can go. Maybe it's just this Force or one of these Explosives. I feel like Explosives is better than Force, though. I'm gonna trim the Force. Doesn't do anything on its own if our opponent doesn't have something for us to target, so... Hopefully 2 Explosives and Rex Sage will be enough to deal with potential Damping Spheres, which I'm pretty sure our opponent will have. Our opponent's down to 14 minutes on the clock, by the way, while we're still at 21. Don't know how that happens, but that's alright. We'll keep our Amulet on one hand. Don't get to play Scout on one, but that's alright. We get to play a Zeus on, too. Might be jamming into something like Deprive or Mana Leak or Remand or whatever. I would not be surprised if they had those cards. Better to jam into those and get countered than to jam into Cryptic and get countered. I guess maybe jamming on the turn where they would have 3 up for Archmage's turn to draw 2 might be marginally better than jamming on turn 2, but whatever. We'll see. Ooh, now we could play Scout on one. Is it better to play Amulet? I kind of feel like the Amulet might be more important. I'm still going to lead on the Forest for potentially setting up Garenbrig later on as far as like green sources is concerned. But I think leading on the Amulet here makes sense. We'd rather not let this one get mana leaked. It does let us cast a Zeus this upcoming turn. We can even leave a bounce land in play thanks to the fact that we have 3 of them. Usually it's wise to keep a bounce land in hand for repeated triggering of things like Valakut, for example, But when you have excess bounce lands, it's better just to make sure you're not putting yourself a land behind every turn by playing it and picking it back up and staying at one land eternally. That just doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good to me. Does it sound good to you? Our opponent has played a Emery and milled over a couple things. What is this? Zimone, Quandrix Prodigy. 2 mana, 1/2 from Strixhaven, of course. 1 in tap. You may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. Interesting. And 4 in tap. Draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. That's alright. It seems a little slow, but I mean, hey, let our opponent do what they want to. And here we are just jamming our Azusa, of course, and we're playing out the Growth Chamber for Transmuting Tolari West, which we do, in fact, have access to here. Unless we draw a Primeval Titan, this is likely to just go straight and get a Summoner's Pact, but that is A-okay. If we do draw the Titan, however, we can safely transmute for Cavernous Souls and play around some counter magic. Usually it would be right to play Forest into another land immediately to make sure you're getting your land drop value out of Azusa, but do we even want to play out this Tolari West, as it'll force us to commit a bounce land to pick it back up, and there's really no reason to do that. I'm just going to play out the Stronghold, I think. We can play Growth Chamber, float some, and pick it back up, and have access to double bounce land and be able to transmute. Although picking up the Growth Chamber would put us away from casting Titan the next turn just by playing Cavern immediately, so I don't know. Interesting spot. I mean, actually, I guess that's not true because we have like a billion land drops, so... Alright. We probably could even cast Titan this turn. Our opponent has access to only 2 mana interaction and potentially Archmage's Charm. I think I'd rather get my Titan Archmage's Charmed than get it Crypticed. So I think we are probably going for it here. Start out by playing a land drop, I guess. Playing out the Growth Chamber so we can have enough green and blue mana at the end of this turn, or at the end of the sequence to do the Titan thing. Let's see, this is going to be 6 mana. I guess we ideally would leave the Stronghold untapped and end by playing the Garrison, which I think we can do. We'll figure it out as we go. It's not super important to plan all this kind of stuff ahead, necessarily. Leave the Scout untapped for instant speed activations, if at all necessary. Our opponent scoops the match. Okay. I mean, I guess they didn't have the card that we were about to be playing our spells into. I'll take it, I guess. Explain to me if you know what just happened there. I guess they just didn't have the answer. So anyways, we are currently 2-0. I have to admit, I don't necessarily think it has anything to do with our Turntimber Symbioses. Don't know what the plural is. Still, haven't looked it up. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll see. But, hey, at least we're having some fun and casting some Titans. We are seeing the power of Tribe Scout here, of course. Tribe Scout looking pretty fierce in comparison to Grazer. I have to admit, recently I felt like Scout was just much better than Grazer. I implore you to give it a shot if you haven't tried it, or if you're very against Scout. I don't know, maybe just play it a bit and see how it feels to you. And yeah, I will have some parting thoughts for the deck list at the very end of the league. So if you want to see how this deck ends up performing and get some thoughts on the deck list, potential changes, then stick around for the end of match 5. Yeah. But of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves there. So let's just focus on the next match. I'll see you guys for match 3 in the next video. This is Redface Menace, signing off.